Hello Compers. Today your thesis statement is due, so you want to make sure that you submit that as soon as possible. I wanted to make this video for you because you're all in different places in your research paper work, and I wanted to be able to consult this whenever you need it, as pretty soon we're going to start writing this thing. It'll be important for you to have what you need. So covered in this video will be how to finish your outline, how to cite sources inside your paper. Okay, and there'll be a couple of resources that I mention and show you, and each of these will be linked with this video and then also available in the research paper folder in Schoology as links. Okay, so the first thing that you see in front of you is how to move from a research question to a thesis statement, and then what to do with your thesis statement as you continue to work on your outline. So this work only works if you have your questions in outline form in Noodle Tools. Okay, so let's work with an example. Let's kind of back up a little bit. Let's say that my topic had something to do with a particular disease. Okay, it doesn't matter if yours has nothing to do with this. I want you to see the thinking process. So just roll with this. And then this part right here, folks, is like the research question document that you have. Okay, so it's following the same line of thinking. So I choose some disease as my topic. And then I add my context, advancements in diagnosis and treatment of that disease. Okay, so a couple of years ago, the student wanted to focus on new technology in treating and diagnosing breast cancer. Okay, so a particular research question, the main research question for this subject might be, how have recent technologies improved diagnosis of and treatment of whatever disease, breast cancer, for instance, lupus, what have you. So preliminary questions that were developed might be, what is this disease? Who acquires it? What are some symptoms? How has it been diagnosed in the past? How has it been treated in the past? And these are the preliminary questions. Remember, those are the ones that need to be answered before you can get to the meat of those questions that will answered will become your thesis statement. So I might have 2 or 3 questions that lead into my thesis statement for this subject, and those are, what new technologies exist in diagnosis? What new advancements exist in treatment? And then the best question that will lead to my thesis statement for this one is, what is the most effective treatment? I know that all of your subjects are quite different and varied, but seeing the thinking is what I want you to do here. So I go through my process of research and finding answers to each of those questions, and then remember, the answer to my major research question becomes my thesis statement. I'm going to use some of the wording, take off the question words of my research question, and use it as a starter. So my working thesis statement might be, and imagine it complete. Over time, diagnosis and treatment of disease, whatever it is, a disease of, and here I may define it a little bit, have significantly improved, making survivability a likelihood rather than a rarity. The most significant advancements are whatever, and I might go further to say, and the best treatment determined to be whatever. Okay, so that would be, as in most research papers or papers of this kind, probably one of, if not the last sentence in my introduction. Okay, that's a great place for a thesis statement in a research-based essay. Okay, now I'm going to show you a document in just a moment that's a template for your outline. Okay, and you'll see how I come to these. But when you're ready to write, you're going to begin your introduction with some sort of attention getter that you cite, a quotation, a fact, a statistic, or some other opening statement to get your reader's attention. This person might start with, some percentage of people in the United States suffer from this disease, making it palpable or relatable somehow. And then explain that in a couple of sentences, expanding that, maybe defining and describing the disease. And then in the next part, some statement as to how urgent diagnosis and treatment are. And then the last thing in the introduction would be that thesis statement I just read to you. Okay, so you're looking at expansion of the outline that you've started to create. And you'll notice that as these questions turn into statements, so too do we get more information in under each one. So the rest of this outline, we see the questions. Okay, and under each one of those, you're going to actually do this. I have a little bit of a to-do to help you. You'll do the real thing, whatever note cards pertain to each question. And most of you have started to drag in your note cards already in Noodle Tools. So what's the disease? Who acquires it? These are my preliminary questions. What are its symptoms? How has it been diagnosed in the past? And each note card comes in from Noodle Tools getting sorted to answer the question that it answers. Okay, so each one of those questions becomes a section in my paper. See that? And then the conclusion is going to be the undoing of my introduction. Okay, I'll repeat my thesis. I'll remind what the most effective treatment will be, and then maybe talk about the impact of the future for this research. Okay, that's where we want to be in about a week or so. And we're going to use some time to talk about how we're going to get there. Okay, just a note as I switch pieces here. If you haven't made any arrangements for your interview, please do so. Get those done sometime this week. Make note cards from your information. You're going to want to take your interview questions with you when you do the interview. You'll want to make notes on that. Have the person that you interviewed signed off on that, and that's what you'll turn in to prove that you did your interview. Okay, that's just a little aside. Back to business. Okay, posted for you, as I mentioned, will be this template for your outline. So when you're writing your outline, you can see what goes in for each thing, and you can stretch and reduce this as needed for your paper. But I want it to be really handy for you so you kind of know what comes next. And if I showed this to you before I showed you the document I just shared with you, it's a little bit too much. So all it does is to show you how to arrange, and each of you will have this linked. It's already in the links portion of Schoology. Okay? So this week we'll be making our outline, we'll be finishing our interviews, and we'll be writing our introduction. So do take a look at the lesson page document and you'll see those there. Okay. The main focus, the second focus, I guess, of this lecture video is to show you how to integrate source material into your paper. So you'll use this information after you've written your intro and you're ready to start writing the body paragraphs of your piece. Okay. I'm going to show you a very simple video, and I share this with sophomores, I share this with all kinds of students. This is called Incorporating Source Material into Your Writing, a 3-step process. And then I'll show you some other resources, so if this way isn't helpful, you have others. Okay? First step is to connect. You've got source material that you want to use in your paper. Okay? This means that you've got a topic sentence written for the section that's turned your minor research question into a statement, and you're ready to prove that with your source information. Okay? So you're going to want to use that. You have 3 ways you can use it. You can summarize information by putting it into your own words, the main ideas. You can paraphrase, which is to partially put it in your own words and partially directly quote it. And then the third option, and you'll use this one maybe most frequently, is to directly quote it. You're going to use the language of the research text in yours. Any way you use source information, refer to it, summarize it, paraphrase it, or quote it, you have to cite it. But we'll get to that in a moment. First one is to connect. You need to use what's called a signal phrase to connect. They can be long or short, but their job is to signal in a phrase that you're about to use the words of someone else. Okay? You can do this simply, you can blend it, or you can compound the structure. Here are some examples. Okay? First, use a simple signal phrase, and this is very much like a dialogue tag. He said, she said, and you'd connect with a comma. And we do this with literature the same way we do this with research pieces. So I might say, Mary Smith, curator of the XYZ Museum, says, or Bob Smith, author of an article entitled, and I would list the title, argues. So the very basic format is to mention the writer, the expert, and then a verb. Posit is like to make a position. Flaherty posits, Slater argues, Lube states. If we're talking about literature, we might say, in the novel, Scout narrates, and then we insert our quotation. In a research piece, we might say, Bob Smith, in his article, How to Write a Research Paper Quickly, says that, and then I would insert my quotation. Okay? Or we can blend this structure. Okay? We blend it when we just blend the quotation right into a sentence we're writing. We don't have a dialogue tag. We don't create necessarily a special handle. We would say, and this is Martin Luther King. King proclaimed that progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. Okay? So I just blended it right into the structure of a sentence I was writing. This is the citation part. I'm citing my source. King is my author, and I mentioned him here. 17 is the page number on which it occurs. Okay, this is called parenthetical documentation because it's in parentheses. Or it's called in-text citation because it's in the text. Or it's called internal citation because it's inside your paper. They all mean the same thing. Okay? So if I said, if I didn't mention the name of my writer here, I would put King inside the parentheses. Third way to do this is to use a compound structure, and that means I connect two complete sentences. Remember compound sentence from earlier in the semester? This is the deal. So you're going to use a compound structure. You're going to have a sentence that sets it up or interprets the quotation, and then the quotation. That was my cat. She says hello. So here's an example. Bullying seems to be increasing in its frequency and intensity, despite education and movements intended to decrease it. That's my setup. Notice my colon. And then I'm going to use my source information. Here's my writer or my expert. Connie, be nice to all, explains, comma, and then I would put in my quotation. Okay, so step 1 is connect. Find a way to connect with your words, the words of others. You may not just drop in a quotation. Step 2, give credit. And I've already alluded to this. This is the necessary citation. If you summarize, if you paraphrase, if you directly quote, you have to cite it. Otherwise, it's plagiarism, even if you don't mean to. The basic structure in your citation, notice the parentheses, is the author's last name and the page number, like this. So if we're citing To Kill a Mockingbird, our author is Harper Lee, last name, and then the text comes from 234. If you have a text that has no author, like a newspaper article, for instance, you would use an abbreviation or the title itself. Okay, like Men Lost at Sea. If I don't have an author. If you're using a source that has no page numbers, as web pages often do not, you just don't include. You would either just have the author's name if there is one, or just the title if there is one. Do not put a URL address in your parentheses. Okay, there should be a title of the article. Okay. Okay. If you're using a direct quotation, that means the words are exactly in your paper, quoted as they were in the original, we cite. If you're using an indirect quotation, which is summarized in your words or paraphrased, you still cite. The only difference is it's your words. You're just citing the original source. Okay. Step 3. After you've incorporated the text into your writing, you want to write several sentences that first explain the context of the quotation. Explain a little bit more. What's going on there? What does it mean? And then explain how the quotation proves your point. Don't say, this proves my point that. Just explain it. Okay? A great resource to look at is called the Purdue OWL. OWL means Online Writing Lab. And they have this great piece. You can just search Purdue Online Writing Lab or Purdue OWL, MLA in-text citations. And here there's all kinds of examples, different styles. So here, for instance, you're going to see those blended structures as well as a signal phrase. You're going to see that if you use the name of the author in the signal phrase, you don't need it in your parenthetical reference. If you just say it without the author's name, then you put the author in the reference. And there's 3 ways to do that. Okay, you can see those. Here's a summarized version. Here's a direct quotation version. Here's another direct quotation version with the author's name used in the signal phrase. Okay. You're going to have lots of practice, and you will have time in class to ask questions of me, but I wanted to make sure you had a place to look in case I wasn't available or you're on your own. Okay? So all the sources that I'm showing you, the Purdue OWL, is a longer version of what I've just shared with you, so you can see the examples. Okay? Links are posted, but there it is. I'll see you soon.